Well, I do want to throw something else out there before we move on to the other movie, because we're talking about these video game movies and huge news dropped this week. And I know you're itching to talk about this, David.
Yeah.
Legend of Zelda is going to be a big budget theatrical movie through Sony, co-produced by Nintendo. So the same way they did with the Super Mario Brothers and Universal, Nintendo's going to have a big hand in producing this movie. And obviously there's tons of big video game IP that's been created in the last 10, 20 years that I'm not privy to. I didn't see Five Nights at Freddy's coming, but Legend of Zelda is to my generation, Gen Xers,
millennials,
and then to the generation since then, because this game has stuck around and kept, like Mario, there's always new sequels year after year. This feels like about as big of a video game adaptation as you could get. It's in there with Sonic, Super Mario Brothers, that level.
Yeah.
So, David, could you talk about just how earth-shattering this news is that Legend of Zelda is going to be a big screen movie?
Well, I have a few notes that stood out to me. One, it's live action. It's with Sony, but it's in a similar, like you mentioned, it's a similar collaboration like Nintendo had with Illumination and Universal, which I think is really cool. I like the idea that maybe Universal had a pitch and they didn't like it so much, and they went to Avi Arad over at Sony, and he's like, hey, I'm all for it. I love the idea of live action. Maybe Universal wanted to stick the whole animated Illumination, G-rated, super kid friendly. I mean, I love the Mario movie because I'm a giant Mario fan, but the plot is paper thin. It's a kid's movie, but it made me feel like a kid.
Right.
Zelda is going to be a whole different level. So they have Wes Ball, I believe his name is, the director of the upcoming Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes film, directing this one. And that gets me excited because if you look at that first trailer for the new Apes film, it looks stunning. And that's going to be a big part of creating a Zelda movie. It needs to look really good. I mean, ideally, it needs to look great. CGI can't be shitty, and there's going to be plenty of CGI in it. The cast is going to be huge.
Yes.
Everyone immediately is like, please not Tom Holland. Please not Tom Holland.
So is that actually, people are saying not Tom Holland? Interesting, because I would think that he's such a natural fit. Sony did Uncharted and whatever you think of that movie, that was a very big hit. So, but okay, you're saying that the video game fans are worried if they cast Tom Holland as
I mean, but I think that, Pat, when you think about that, that's sort of like, what if, Tom Holland should be Spider-Man and Captain America, and he should be the Flash. Like, you have to have different actors playing these iconic video game characters.
Well, it's like the Chris Pratt thing. Chris Pratt is suddenly everything. So no, I don't think people want Tom Holland. Honestly, it wouldn't stun me if they ask. 'Cause I do think, based on Nintendo with Mario, I know it's voice acting. They went for stars. They went for star power.
Yep.
They're going to do the same thing because they want to ensure a hit. And Nintendo is notoriously patient, take their time, do things the right way, focus on quality, not quantity. And that's always been a massive success for them throughout their entire time in the video game industry. Zelda, I think, will not reach the heights of, say, a Mario Bros. In the international box office and just, those crazy global numbers, but it could be a massive success. I mean, if we're just looking at video game adaptations, my expectation is that it will be the second highest grossing video game movie of all time.
I think so.
Confidently.
Yeah.
Because Zelda, while it's not on the same level as Mario, and it's actually hitting, I would say, a slightly different demographic, there is still the exact same thing as Mario. If it is a quality film that looks awesome, it's generations, right? These games have been passed on from generations and generations. It's cool with the Five Nights at Freddy's thing, where these are all very recent fans, in the last 10 years, and they're all just super passionate and wanted to go have fun in the theater. But something like a Zelda, I mean, that's so many, sons and fathers and daughters and mothers, all these, it's going to be one of those events. I imagine it'll be PG-13. And if it look, I mean, that first trailer could just go crazy. Like the
Yes.
people that are, it is Zelda, especially, the more recent games, they are somewhat cinematic. They're lovely. They look beautiful. And there is so much story to tell there. It's cool to think about what Nintendo's doing because they have the IP to keep this going for a long time if they want to.
Yeah.
I think they will continue to make Illumination Mario movies and spin-offs, and those will all be big hits. And they could do the same thing with Sony and Zelda and whatever else they want to do because they own so much. But I'm glad they're taking their time, and I'm glad they are going with a different studio because that shows me they're putting real thought into this.
Yes. Yes.
And I think live action is a good choice for this because of what it could be, a more, like you said, PG-13 sort of take on a character than Mario, which is going to be for the kids, but also for fans of all ages. I mean, the thing with Zelda, and we were talking by the cooler earlier, I agree with you, David, not going to be as big as Mario just because Mario is like, everybody knows Mario. But I remember as a little kid going over to my friend Jimmy Stevenson's house and playing Zelda on just old school Nintendo and that iconic music and just hanging out, getting fed cookies by his mom. She made the best cookies. We would sit there and we would milking cookies. What's more American?
Right.
And what I'll tell you is that was the 80s. Now, fast forward 2023, this year, I'm at my other job, okay? Because I'm in the mines. I'm down there getting covered in soot. And what are the young people talking about? Just this year, a new Zelda video game came out, and they were staying up late to download it and play it. They were coordinating their days off to play a Zelda game.
Wow.
And that is the generational span. And then there's people older than me that are going to be excited. Yes, about Zelda. So, yes, this is going to be a huge smash if it's done well. And Sony knows how to keep things under budget. And Nintendo knows its audience.
Yep. And I do think, I think we all agree that our gun to our head, this isn't going to be bigger than Mario. But I do see a scenario where this is, and call me crazy, this Legend of Zelda IP, if done right, the ceiling is Lord of the Rings. That is what this IP is for several generations now. This is big fantasy IP. And if they nail this correctly, this could be that level of movie. A movie that gets shockingly high critical reviews and does $1 billion. Maybe not with the most kid level audience, but could be that type of just giant, put it out in December and it is like the biggest movie of the year. I think that is the ceiling on this movie. And it goes to show, back to the superhero thing, the next 10 years of films, the big IP is video games more so than it is comic books. Batman's always going to be giant. Spider-Man is going to be giant. We'll see what happens with X-Men and those movies. But I think Mario, Legend of Zelda, Sonic, Metroid, whatever these movies, the games that I don't know about from the last 10, 20 years, those feel like bigger IP than the Fantastic Four and whatever Marvel's going to, wheel out the next 5, 10 years.